Radio here back in 2004, so it hits a little bit close to home, and it's always good to hear when it works, that people are listening and that it's having an impact on their lives. So I really want to share with you four main things here tonight. I want to share with you a little bit about the founding of EWTN, because without EWTN we wouldn't be here. I want to share with you about the founding of Catholic Radio here in Kansas City. And then I want to share with you some testimonials. I've had the opportunity to work for Catholic Radio for about the last 6.5 years. And I've had a lot of people who have come up to me and told me the impact Catholic Radio has had on their lives. And last thing is, I want to share with you why I think you should listen to Catholic Radio, maybe as your Lenten, another thing to add for Lent. So, as many of you know, you might know the story better than me. Mother Angelica started EWTN, which stands for Eternal Word Television Network, back in 1981. She basically felt called to start the television network. She had no money, she had no experience. Long story short, she ordered over $500,000 worth of equipment. The money for that equipment was due upon delivery. They delivered the equipment. They asked for the money, and Mother Angelica had no money. One of her sisters comes up to her and is like, Mother, we need, over $500,000 to pay this guy. And she goes, why are you telling me? Go tell Jesus. And so the sisters go, they pray. Long story short, there's a guy who's out on his boat, probably a yacht if he has that much money, and he's reading one of Mother Angelica's mini books. He calls the number on the back of the mini book. He goes, I want to know what I can do to help out your cause. She's like, well, I need this much money. Can you do that? And he's like, I can. She's like, can you wire it right now? So, providential. And I like this story. I mean, Mother Angelica recently passed away and probably be canonized one day, so it's a great story. But I really like the story of the guy who was reading the Mother Angelica mini book and called in. Because we all give Mother Angelica, maybe as we should, the credit for EWTN. But without this guy responding to his part of the call, it wouldn't exist today. So it wasn't just maybe a saint acting, it's also a lot of our participation within that that can make things happen. Kind of my dad's story for starting Catholic Radio here is an interesting one. The year was 2002. And he was at a Scott Hahn was in town speaking. There were a lot of other speakers at a conference, and someone had brought up the topic of their guardian angels, praying to their guardian angels for help, and even asking your guardian angel to reveal their name to you. And so my dad goes to the back of the church on break between the talks, and he's like, he thought this was kind of weird. He's like, he recently had a conversion a few years before, and he's like, I don't know what I think about this, Praying to your guardian angel, I know we teach that we have one, but do I really believe we have one? He goes to the back of the church, he starts talking to some people, and they're like, yeah, I know who my guardian angel is. Their name's been revealed to me, and he's like, what do I have to lose? I'll pray for my guardian angel's name. So the next couple months, he's praying whenever he can think of it for his guardian angel to reveal his name to him. And he basically forgets about it. 6 months goes by, he forgets to pray about it. He's going into our local home parish. He's walking into the parish, and a gentleman by the name of Claude Sasso, I'm not sure if any of you have met him, comes up to my dad and is like, he basically says, we're starting a group. We want to buy 2 hours of Catholic Radio on Sunday, maybe one Sunday a month, and we want to see if you would be on the board to help this start up. He's like, sure, I'll be on the board. The funny part of this is my dad's never worked for anyone in his life. He can't stand meetings, and there's no way he would be on a board. He goes into church, kneels down, starts praying, and he doesn't hear anything audibly, but he just feels inside the word Gabriel. And he knows instantly, oh, this is my guardian angel. And he doesn't tell my mom about this. He didn't even tell my mom he had been praying 6 months before for his guardian angel's name. So that happens after Mass. My dad tells my mom, A call came up to me and I said that I'd be on a committee to get Catholic radio on 2 hours a month here in Kansas City. And my mom's just like, why are you joining this committee? You hate committees. Everyone you join, you quit. You're just going to come home angry because people should do things this way. And he's like, well, I already told him I'm going to go. It's in a week and, that's it. So it was around Christmas time. My dad had bought my mom the higher level cable channels for that Christmas because she wanted EWTN. And we only had the lower level, so she didn't get EWTN, Roku, those things didn't exist. And so you had to buy the higher level channels. So they're watching TV, putting up the Christmas tree, and the first thing when they turn on the TV is Lou Dobbs' Money Line, and it's how to start a radio station. And my dad's like, oh, this is awesome. I have this meeting in a week. I can go in there, and maybe I'll at least somewhat know what I'm talking about or share something that's important. So they're just doing that, putting up the Christmas tree. And then my mom's like, turn it to EWTN. And then it's Father Mitch Pacwa on with another gentleman, and it's how to start a Catholic radio station. My dad's like, awesome, even better. This has to be, a little bit providential that all this is happening. And so he's like, oh, this will be great. He's taking notes and all of this. And Father Mitch ends it with, let's pray a prayer to the patron saint of Catholic radio, St. Gabriel. Oh. And my he hadn't shared anything with my mom yet. He's kind of sitting there a little frozen and stuff. And so he kind of shares with my mom the story from 6 months before and then from that morning of going to Mass and things. And he's like, I'm going to go to this meeting, but I feel like I need to tell them instead of just buying 2 hours once a month, we need to get a radio station here. Back then, I think it was about 2002, 2003, there were only 10 full-power Catholic radio stations in the United States. Now we have about 250, so 10 to 250 in about 15 years is quite a bit. So that's really, he went to this meeting, he presented it, everyone thought he was crazy. They're like, we're just trying to come up with, about $1,000 a month to do this, and he's like, well, that's a lot to spend, but I think we need to start one here. And so he reached out to EWTN, he talked to the guy who was in charge of starting Catholic radio stations there and helping get them started, and he asked my dad 2 questions. He goes, do you have $1 million in cash? And my dad goes, no. And he goes, do you have radio experience? And my dad's like, no. And so at this point, my dad thought he was off the hook. He's like, those are the only 2 questions, and I failed at both. And he's like, perfect. He goes, because no Catholic radio station that's for profit has ever made it, and no one that's ever had radio experience or the money to start one has ever succeeded. Oh. And so about kind of that group ended up kind of dwindling down to just a few people. They had to present to, I think it was Bishop Finn at the time, and then I'm not sure if Archbishop Kelleher was still on the Kansas side or if it was Archbishop Naumann. And they basically gave my dad the go-ahead to start Catholic radio here. It started with 1090 AM. Many of you might remember it was very low power. You may have not even been able to get it much past Independence at the time. And now you can almost drive to Columbia, Missouri and get it because it's been upgraded. But really, that's how Catholic radio started here. An interesting story my dad probably wouldn't want me to share, but I can. Part of the deal was my dad had been in real estate his whole life, and my mom always had a deal with him. If you lost a certain amount of money, you had to go do something else. So there was the same deal with Catholic radio, and the deal was if he lost $100,000, which is a ton of money, they took out a line of credit on the house, and they wouldn't run Catholic radio anymore. So probably about 7 months in, they had lost around $97,000. It wasn't making money. And he's like, I don't know what to do. I thought, it kind of felt a little foolish, but he's like, well, I felt called to do it. Like, we took the chance and other stuff. And he's like, within a week, we're going to cross that mark. So he's like, I called a lawyer, told him we were interested in selling it, seeing what we needed to do, called some brokers. And he goes, I got back the next Monday because this was a Friday. And he goes, we had a couple checks in the mail for basically about $2,000. And he goes, so we didn't shut it down. He goes, over the next month, there were a couple other times they got almost to like $99,000 in debt. And then they went on the radio and they go, we're in debt, we're probably 3 months behind. And in that day, we had like 75,000 in donations. So, started with one station here in Kansas City back in 2004, and right now we run 17 stations throughout Missouri, Kansas, and Colorado, and they also cover parts of Nebraska, Iowa, and parts of Wyoming. So that's kind of the long story short, I guess, version of everything. Like I said, I've the great opportunity to go around to parishes like yours and speak throughout the last 6.5 years. Some of the stories that really stand out to me, I was at St. Andrew's Parish, some of you know it, north of the river, and a gentleman came up to me after I spoke at Mass, and he had one child under each arm, and he goes, hey, I just want to let you know that last Easter, my entire family came into the Catholic Church, and it was because of Catholic radio. Another story that stands out, I didn't actually answer this phone call, but it was during one of our radiothons. A gentleman called in, and he actually had surgery so that he couldn't have children anymore. And he was calling from the hospital as his wife was in labor having their third child. And it was because about 1.5 years before he had surgery to reverse that surgery because of things he had heard on Catholic radio. So he was literally calling us from the hospital to thank us as his third child was being born. So that's pretty awesome. I'm not one for statistics necessarily, but Catholic Radio Association, they did statistics of Catholic radio throughout the United States, and they had over 10,000 people respond to it, and of those, 15% of people responded and said that Catholic radio had a major impact at saving their marriage. And I think, obviously, in our culture, family and marriage and things are under attack, and I think that speaks to the Catholic message in general, but also the good work Catholic radio is doing as a whole. The last little testimony I have is actually from a lady named Jennifer. She's on our development board for Catholic Radio now, and I spoke at a parish she was at probably at least 5 years ago. And when I was talking, I was up there, I was giving a fundraising talk at the end of Mass, and she's like, what she told me, her part of the story was, when you were talking, all I could think of was how boring Catholic radio had to be because of how boring Mass was to me at the time. She's like, I couldn't imagine, I was bored at Mass that day, and I couldn't imagine if I was listening to Catholic radio how boring it must be. But she donated. So because she donated, we sent her a reminder in the mail. We sent her another mailing that fall. We sent her a Christmas mailing. Eventually, she kept getting these mailings, and she's like, well, I'm supporting this station, I might as well listen to it. Long story short, she had a total conversion in her life, has really been one of our biggest volunteers. Like I said, she sits on our development board, is probably our biggest cheerleader of why Catholic radio should be around and why we should go out to parishes and let them know we have it. So really, I just thank you. Thank Zach and Father Matthew for allowing me to be here to kind of just share Catholic radio with you. Thank you for your patience here this evening. I haven't talked a ton about our station. You actually have, you have at least 3 options probably here. You can listen to 890, 1090, or 1190. 1090 was the first Catholic radio station started here in Kansas City. It's a AM daytime station. So basically what that means is it's on the air from sunrise to sunset. So as the hours get longer, you're able to hear Catholic radio longer on that station. The closest station to here is 1190. Those towers are right by basically Kauffman Stadium, Arrowhead, right over there off of I-70. 1190 is a 24-hour station, but it powers down a little bit at night, so if your signal's a little worse, it's powering down. About a year and a half ago, a gentleman basically gave us 890. If you're wondering why we need 3 stations, it's because someone gave it to us. We started 1190. If you ever listened to it a couple years ago, it was Spanish Catholic radio. It's English now because we weren't getting too much support for it. But so those are the stations that you can listen to. You've probably seen our billboards around or bumper stickers on cars. But please, if you are listening, thank you. I really share these stories not as a pat on my back or as a pat on my dad's back or Mother Angelica's or anyone's, but of those of you who do listen, who do support the station, because it's through your ability to listen, through your support, that keeps it going. And I'm able to tell these stories that Zach's able to encounter, Christ through Catholic radio. So, yeah, I don't have anything else to talk about, but if you do have questions, I might be able to answer them. I don't know.
When's the next radiothon?
Our next radiothon, so we do a radiothon twice a year. Radiothon is basically our biggest fundraiser. So we're on the air from basically 7 in the morning till 6 at night asking for money. And our next one is the week of April 17th. Also, we put on the Pitching for Priests game. If you've never been to it, it's where the Missouri and Kansas priests play each other in baseball at T-Bone Stadium. And that game's going to be on Friday, July 6th at 7 p.m. So, yeah. Well, thank you.